Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Okay, so in Republic Book 1, there's a lot of arguments that are being made that discuss matters of like art or craft or science or skill. The word sometimes varies depending on the translation. The Greek word is techne, the word that we actually get technology and technique from, and it means something like a way of knowing how to do something. So medicine is an example. Piloting a ship is another example. And by piloting, it doesn't just mean running the rudder. He means actually running it, making sure it doesn't sink, because the sailors don't do things that they're not supposed to do. Agriculture is another example. And now think about your own majors, right? Every one of your majors, you've been studying something that would tie in with this. You've been learning how to do something. And what does every skill involve? Well, there's some sort of subject matter. So if we take medicine, for example, what's the subject matter of medicine? What does the practitioner use or work on?
Human body.
Human body is a big part of it. Nowadays we have lots of technology that we, MRI or blood tests. Those are things that the skill uses. I mean, you can give me an MRI, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not going to be able to do anything useful with it. You can draw blood and hand it to me and give me a blood test kit, and probably I'm not going to be able to figure out how to do anything useful with that either, unless it has really good instructions. There's also the practitioner, right? I'm just going to put expert, because I can't remember how to spell that anymore. Okay, so skills always have some sort of expert who works on the subject matter. So a doctor or a nurse practitioner, nurse. Who else does medical things? Emergency responders. Anyone else doing medical? Well, lab techs are doing things with medical things. Anesthesiologists. And we could name a whole bunch of different subdivisions. Now, they have the skill, and that allows them to take the subject matter, whatever it is that the skill is about. Could be, leather for a cobbler who's making shoes. Believe it or not, shoes were at one time mostly made out of leather, including the soles. And what do they do with that? They have some sort of product, which is always some type of good, right? And the skill, part of what it consists in, are certain standards. That's why I can't practice medicine. You shouldn't let me practice medicine, right? I mean, I can do a couple home remedies, and I know if you've got a sprain, you should probably take ibuprofen, not morphine. Or rather than antacid. But I'm not a doctor. Even if I played one on TV, you shouldn't listen to me, right? There used to be that old ad, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV, and people would try to sell you stuff based on that. Well, no, you actually want somebody who's an expert. Should you let me run your finances? I know a little bit about finances. Wouldn't you be better off with somebody who is actually studying finance? What do you think? Yeah, because they're more likely to achieve that goal, that end, that good. That's distinctive to that skill. And now that product or that good is a good or a benefit for someone. Is the doctor benefiting him or herself primarily by practicing medicine?
Making money.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But is making money the good that medicine is about? It's a byproduct, but it's not the good. If it becomes the good, the practice of medicine becomes corrupted, doesn't it? That is actually a good point to go into some of this. Socrates says making money is the wage earner's art, right? And so alongside of it, it gets a little far-fetched at this point. Is there really an art of making money that goes along with the art of medicine? I'm not really sure about that. But let's say at least you could do things for more than one reason. There could be more than one thing you're trying to achieve. But the question is what you're trying to achieve the good of that particular art or discipline? Money isn't the only coin that you could be paid in, he says, too, right? What else does he say that you could try to earn as your wages? Anyone remember? It's kind of buried deep in there in the discussion. Honor or praise or things like that. Some people want to be paid for what they do, and that's the main reason why they're doing it. Other people want to be looked up to for what they do. Let's think just about education for a moment. Now, if you actually get into education because you have the idea of making a ton of money, you're in the wrong field. Because unless you do something really unusual, you're probably not going to make a ton of money. Even right now, the Chicago teachers that are on strike, people are saying, "Oh, they're making so much money." They're also 35 students a classroom, and they have to buy their own supplies and bring them in. It's not a picnic. My aunt was a Chicago public school teacher for years. And by the way, I say all that, I'm not a supporter of the union, by the way. But educators are not highly paid. What about their social position? You think somebody might become an educator because they want the praise or the admiration or something like that goes along with it? That's plausible. Could there be other things that people might want besides the good of their profession? Think anyone would become an educator because they like being in charge? My mom used to, when she was a kid, she'd make all the other kids play school with her. And so she would, get up. They didn't have a chalkboard, but she'd pretend that there's a chalkboard. They'd be just sitting on the steps. This was in Chicago. And she'd make the other kids be the students. And back then, it was you had to shut up and do what the teacher said. And so she was, all about that. And she would say, "Hey, you'll get a turn later on." And my uncle's main complaint was we never actually got a turn. Because once she was in charge, you can't question the teacher, right? So it was kind of a self-serving thing. Now, do you think anybody gets into education for those sorts of reasons? I've seen some people. What's the actual distinctive good of education? Yeah.
I mean, you teach kids.
Well, that's your activity. What should happen with those kids?
Get smarter.
That's not a bad way of putting it. They get smarter. They come out with knowing something that they didn't know. Maybe you actually improve them in some way, and that's a benefit to them. You getting paid is not a benefit to them. You being looked up to is not a benefit to them. That's a benefit to you, right? And so when Thrasymachus and Socrates are going back and forth about this, Thrasymachus is focused primarily on the benefit to the expert, the practitioner. Socrates is noting that with any of these sort of tasks or activities or skills, one second. Go ahead.
I was going to say, with the prestige thing, though, when it comes to being an educator, that can be beneficial to them.
To the kids?
What?
To the students?
Yeah. Let's say that you're the most prestigious philosopher teacher on Earth right now, and we study under you.
Okay.
That's
I see what you're saying. Yeah. If you're studying with people who are big names, then you sort of gain some of their juice, their moxie, their whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that happens. You're right. There are people who associate themselves with the big names precisely.
They can get prestige, like, you know, like Harvard has like a prestigious thing, and by going to Harvard, by you saying you studied at Harvard, you get prestige through that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll actually say something, and I have no problem saying this on camera actually, because I've said it many places and times. I have not been highly impressed with the people from the Ivy League that I've run across as being more intelligent or better informed or better scholars or anything than the rest of us rum-dums, you know, who went to state colleges, whether they were high tier or low tier. I'm not saying that they're any dumber than the rest of us. And they usually have really nice libraries and access to lots of good things. I just haven't been impressed with them being superior, you know. I haven't been impressed that they are superior to the rest of us. Yeah. I don't want to go too far on this
No,
digression.
yeah, never mind. Because it was gonna say what you were gonna say about Ivy League. Like I've never believed either. Like they're just paying for the name. They're not actually performing at a certain level. Like that's how I always saw it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like a social class thing.
the social class is an important part of the Ivy League and the big state schools too.
Yeah.
The well-endowed ones. Yeah, I mean, you can get a good education really anywhere you go if you really want to work at it. But you know, you'd think that your professors should be part of that, right? The practitioners. Think about other skills now. Think about where you're going, because right now you are, except for any of those of you who are seniors right now, you are halfway to being a first step practitioner in whatever it is that you're studying, right? In your major. You are on your way to becoming an expert. You're at the intermediate stage. You know more about your major right now, I'm willing to bet, than I do. Do you think? It's probably the case, right? I mean, I may have studied some of the stuff that you guys studied, but it was a long time ago. So you ought to know more about it. What is the subject matter that you're working with? Some of you are going to be educators. I remember there's a lot of education people in this class, so we've already looked at that. What's the subject matter? What it is that you're teaching, but also you're working with your students, right? What other majors did we have a lot of in this class? A lot of business majors, didn't we? And what else? Business, accounting.
Communications.
Oh yeah, a lot of comm majors. I think there was one CJ major, maybe. Well, let's just take business. Think about that for a moment. That handout or that worksheet that I gave you. You could arrange all of these sorts of ideas for what it is that you're studying. If you're doing business, it's not just about making money. There's more to it than that, right? Who is the expert? It kind of depends on whether we're talking about management or finance or marketing, I know. But let's say we want to be really, really bare bones with this. The expert is maybe the entrepreneur, the business person, who knows something.
The CEO maybe. Like
Yeah,
just the top. I don't.
At least the successful one. Who knows what they're doing. Not the CEO just before the company crashes. What is the subject matter of business?
Market, company.
Okay, those are, yeah, whatever it is that company actually does. Yeah.
I was going to say the subject matter is just money, pretty much,
It is and it isn't, because there's a lot more to it than just money. Money is going to be what you use to measure just about everything, and it's what's changing hands. But what else is important? If you want to be a good, let's say we just take marketing and sales. If you want to be a good salesperson, you got to know more than just about money, right? What else do you need to know about?
Good with people.
Yeah, you have to have those, what we call people skills. And those are skills. Those are actual, you may not be able to put them out there in an articulate fashion, but you have to be able to figure out what makes people tick. It's what we call psychology, right? What were you going to say?
I was gonna say maximizing like shareholders' profits and stuff.
Yeah, learning where the inefficiencies are to get those out of the way to raise revenues, yeah.
I was going to say, like, understanding your customer and what they want.
Very important too, yeah. A lot of businesses have screwed up by taking their customer for granted, right? Now, in business, it might be actually easier to point what is the actual product, but it's not always just the thing that's in the box that you're selling. Maybe if you think about certain brands, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you're pretty much selling the name, if you're selling like a brand name, like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna buy you're gonna buy a GE refrigerator because they know GE products last forever and they're reliable.
Yeah, now you're hitting on something that's a good, and it's not just the tangible good that you've got, it's something else, right? Like security, reliability, being able to be confident that at least that part of your house isn't going to break down. We can say the same thing with cars too. Sometimes you're also selling an experience. Starbucks made it big by selling a certain kind of ethos. Now they've managed to lose that in the process. They became very large, and their coffee went from being like handmade each time to these measured shots and stuff like that. But originally they were selling something else, and that was good for people, and that's why people bought it, and that's why people went in there, and that's why they opened up all over the place. And if a company quits being, or a practitioner quits being a benefit to other people, they're not going to be considered to be a good practitioner very long, are they? And in business, what happens? The market turns against them, right? And they go out of business. Why? Because other people are doing the same thing. What about other arts? This is a question you can ask of anything that you're going to study, anything that you're going to be engaged in that has some sort of standards that tell you what a good product is, what a good performance is. Think about music. Music is awfully subjective, isn't it? But can I just go and get some pots and pans and bang on them and get a record deal?
Maybe.
You think so? And I put it on YouTube, and then I catch on the pot banger guy. I don't think so, because there's probably other people out there already doing that, and they don't seem to be particularly successful. If you want to become a musician, what do you have to do? Are any of you musicians? Play an instrument? What do you need to do to become good at it?
Practice a lot.
Yeah, and is practice fun?
Not always, no.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, honestly, a good portion of it is going to be boring. I mean, what do you play?
Violin.
Oh, yeah, a very demanding instrument. Well, did you raise your hand? Piano. Oh, another demanding instrument. I play the banjo. That's not a hard instrument. I used to play the bass guitar, which actually is more demanding than a banjo. Probably one of the reasons I play the banjo now. But if you want to get good at it, you got to do a lot of scales, don't you? And then after scales, you got to do other exercises. And if you want to get good at things, you also have to listen to other musicians. You have to master a certain corpus. You can't just do whatever you feel like doing. The art or the skill or the discipline imposes certain standards on you if you want to be a good practitioner. And if you're a musician, now of course that's a little bit different, isn't it? Because when you play the violin, you probably enjoy it yourself, right? So the product that you're creating is in fact a good to you. But you're not going to get hired just to play whatever you feel like playing, right? The life of a musician is still a life mainly of pleasing the patrons, whoever's paying you. And if you are benefiting someone, then you're probably going to be a successful practitioner.